OD, I'm not sure if you're giving the update on engineering today. I assume you'll put up your hand if that's the case, but Zaki's up on stage now. That's great. Welcome, Zaki.
How's it going, guys?
It's going. It's going. Okay. We're a minute past start here. Just going to say hello to everybody and welcome. This is the weekly community meeting. Give it a couple of minutes yet for a few more people to straggle in, but we will get going very shortly. So hang in there. Okay. I hate making people that show up on time wait, so we're going to start, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Rico Flan, and I am going to be the moderator facilitator of today's community meeting call. Shashank, who normally pulls this duty, is on the road right now. I think he's in transit someplace. But Shashank, I see you in the audience. Thanks for coming today. We'll put you up on here, put you on stage here in a sec if you've got connectivity, and feel free to join us. We've got a briefer agenda today, in part because we've got a couple of people out sick. New Drew, who a lot of you know, has COVID, and Adal is down with either COVID or the flu. Hasn't been able to get a test yet. Both of those guys were on the agenda for today, so best wishes to all of them, and hope everybody else is keeping themselves safe. Our agenda today looks like this. First off, we're going to run through sort of the state of the OL network where we are right now. And then for the main agenda, we're going to do a roundup of the working groups, which really sort of kicked into gear this week in earnest and last week. And also a bit of a tech update from Zaki on what's been happening with the state of the network. So let's jump right into it. First, with the overall state of OL. How are we doing? Where are we? Well, for one thing, this is day 59 since the public announcement. So, yeah, we're one day away from actually having been up for 2 months. It is still extremely early days. All the alpha seekers in the room, welcome. The current epoch is 78. We've got 61 validators in the network right now. That's up from 57 last week. We had 64 at one point between last week and this, but some of the changes to the network topography, some people are trailing getting their systems back up after that. So I expect we'll be back at full force in the next couple of days. Carpe installations, we just crossed the 3,100 download mark. We've only got 880 active this week. That's actually down just a little bit from last week, in part because we're still sort of discouraging people from running Carpe. We haven't actually officially opened things up for Carpe yet, but people will find a way. So hats off to everybody who has found a way. And that change that will open things back up to other Carpe users is coming really soon. Discord community, after a bit of a pause over the holidays, we're back into growth mode. We've got a little over 2,100 members, and that's up over 300 members from last week when we met. So that's great. Some new blood in the community is always a good thing. Also, in terms of just some quick news items since the last time we met, there is sort of a new network architecture out there. Everyone is being asked to run two different VMs, and Zaki is up here on stage with us. I'm going to hand it over to him in just a little bit to explain what that's all about. There is a new release out, 5.0.9, with instructions in the Validator announcements channel about what you need to do with that. We do need everybody to get on board with that and get up and running. Network resilience is a big issue right now, and the sooner we get all that stabilized, the sooner we can open things up for more Carpe users and get things banging on all cylinders again. And the other news since last week that's just worth highlighting right now is the working groups are really starting to hit their pace. Some good productive meetings. You can see the minutes from the meetings in the working group channels and keep up with what's happening. And as I look out at the people who've shown up today, this is a room full of doers. These are all the people that are in the working groups that are showing up, that are doing things, and that are running nodes. So hats off to all you guys. You're making it happen. We can feel that the momentum is definitely shifting on the community side, which is a big deal. Okay, let's go shift over to the main agenda. And before we get into the working group roundup, I'd like to invite Zaki to speak and give us a bit of an update on what's happening technically around the network and with these changes and with the release 509. Zaki, welcome. Over to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll just get into the meat of it. Okay, so what we have continued to learn is a couple of things that are very important. Um, it is absolutely essential to the health of the network that the validator set not be running the full connecting to the public full node network from their validator node. What we have learned from this whole experience is that if your validator is connected to both networks, the load from processing incoming transactions from Carpe users, including the bug in Carpe where it is submitting VDFs beyond the epoch limit of 72 72 VDF transactions. This absolutely, bogs down your validator. Your validator struggles in consensus, and this was the root cause of really all of the network instability that we started seeing almost a month ago, and we've been working to resolve. So, the new tooling that we've been putting together gives you updated validator configs that allow you to now set up a more sophisticated topology. Of your sophisticated topology for your validator. And so the ask is now that validators contribute to both validating the network and processing incoming transactions. But I want to reemphasize that the most important thing that a validator has to do, sort of bare minimum that will get us a stable network as we start opening up the public full node to people who aren't sort of messing with their Carpe configs and finding people to send them to onboard their transactions, is going to be making sure that you are not connected to the public full node network. The other thing that was very cool that happened is we did enable the ability to do validator config updates, so validators actually can update their IP addresses. And so this is very helpful for people who are on hosts that require you to change your IP address if you want to move to a more powerful machine, for instance. And so that tooling is all live. And we really encourage people to do that. There's going to be some minimum amount of full node operators who are sort of deploying the full node connection in order to onboard Carpe users. And we're sort of looking for, say, when the validator set has communicated, hey, like here's where I'm at. And so that's really the important ask from validators. Like, you have all the tools now in front of you to update your setups. You can, if you need to move IP addresses, the tools exist to move IP addresses. That if you need to, if you are ready to run a full node and help ingest the Carpe transactions, in addition to validating the network. If you've already removed the public full node from the public full node network from your validator config, these are things that need to be explicitly communicated. There's a spreadsheet in validator operations. And once we have enough data to say, hey, like this is what the state of the network is now, we can really open the floodgates back up and really start encouraging new people to run Carpe, and really start growing the network again and get back on track. Because before all of this happened, what were we working on? I just want to draw everyone's attention back to it. We were working on essentially our delegation system, the ability for Carpe towers to now participate in the selection of validator function. Um, and that was really exciting work. We were very excited about those protocol changes. It was really cool. We've spent now almost a month fighting our way through. And then the third thing that is the Occlusion Engineering Fund has been making payments, and we are talking to vendors who are planning to do more significant work for us. We're talking to people in the wider blockchain space. So expect to hear more about that in future updates.
All right, excellent. That all sounds like good news. I know that for some people, the change in topology, having to run that second VM, is likely to is going to cause additional expense, obviously, for people. And the fixed IP issue is there as well. If anyone is looking to change the location of where their VMs are at this point in time, we would encourage you to stay off of AWS and stay off of DigitalOcean. Just in terms of network resilience, we've got a lot of people there already. It makes us vulnerable if those go down. I would assume probably the Google network is also on that list, but I haven't seen recent stats about how people are distributed. And again, if anybody's onboarding new validators, please encourage them to choose another location for placing their VMs. We need more network diversity, and that's super critical for keeping us stable and up and running. Okay, that is where we are on the network front. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Zaki while he is up here on stage? If so, put up your hand. I'll bring you up here. Okay, I'm going to leave that floating around in the room. I'm watching. If somebody puts up their hand, we'll get you up here. Let's go ahead and move into sort of the working group roundup. And we're starting to see the working group structures come together with that organizational proposal that was put out and socialized across the last couple of weeks. And what that means is each of the working groups has been electing the key roles for their working groups across this last week. And that is the coordinator, who helps basically facilitate the working group and keep it on track and is charged with getting stuff done. The broker who manages all of the hustle karma work that falls within the control of that working group, and it's all sort of subject matter oriented. There's an engineering working group, there's an operations working group, etc. And then there's the archivist that has the important function of not only recording what's going on with the meetings, but maintaining the transparency and being the bridge to the community so that the working groups reflect the community intention. And as a result of that, those three key roles perform a variety of other functions around the organization. The archivists are charged with now doing the reports in the working group roundup at the weekly community meetings. So with that, I want to introduce you to Christian, who is the archivist for the Hustle Karma working group and the governance working group. Christian, you want to give us updates on what is happening with both of those working groups, please?
Sure, yeah, Christian here. So quick update first on the governance working group. Just at a high level, I think the way I've heard this group described is sort of the group that sort of thinks goes through the rules of how we make the rules, and also with a keen focus on sort of how we come to like a collective social consensus on important items. To that end, presently this group is looking at both in the interim, how do we facilitate off-chain voting to reach a social consensus, and then also researching sort of a path forward in the long-term potential on-chain voting. As Rico already noted, we kind of voted on and socialized the organizational framework for the working groups, and have put that structure out to the other working groups for their buy-in. Um, and in the interim, we're also looking at sort of documenting the Open Libra landscape and sort of the stakeholders and kind of consolidating information that's out there. Um, and then also kind of documenting the existing governance system. And I would say, like, if you're interested in governance or have any interest in this group, like, please join in. We'd love to have you. Next is the Hustle Karma Working Group. Just at a high level, in the interim, we're sort of further building out the processes of how we kind of identify, source, and compensate for bounties for those that are doing all the work to launch and keep this network running, as well as sort of establishing sort of norms and processes around this. And if you have an interest in sort of being a broker, I would know that we have two groups with open broker roles, so we'd love to have you there as well. And then it looked like someone was about to jump in, so I can go on mute for any questions.
I had a question. Um, so I've been part of this project for a long time. Almost 2 years, and we never had a governance working group before. So we would the group of us would mostly discuss frequently in this Discord, and occasionally in like a weekly video call, like governance decisions in this network. And I am not entirely ready to throw away like all of our sort of effective de facto governance processes for something new. But what is the sort of view of the governance working group towards sort of like the legacy governance processes in this organization?
And Rico, I might pull you in on this question as well, just because I'm relatively new as well, so I want to make sure that that we're kind of addressing this question. But Rico, can you speak to the how we're factoring in kind of the legacy
Yeah,
in?
yeah, and Zaki, forgive the sarcasm because it's the first thing that pops to mind, which is as soon as we identify some legacy governance mechanisms, we'll let you know. No, the when we look at the landscape of what's happened traditionally with this project, like you say, it has been sort of off the cuff. Nonetheless, it's been very functional. And certainly as it relates to the validators and the system upgrades and the things that actually affect the protocol, the governance that's in place of the voting by the validators is fine at this point in time. We do need to improve our comms around this. We need to do a better job of getting our arms around all of the validators so that we can reach them when there are incidents and get them to be responsive in timely fashion. So that mechanism itself, while it exists, needs some optimization. The other things like what defines, say, an active member, who should have voting privileges within working groups, how do we elect the key roles, what terms do they serve, what parliamentary rules do we follow, all of that stuff is still a green field and has been undefined, and the governance working group is trying to attack that and come up with something that's functional for us but isn't overly burdensome and doesn't create this hierarchical bureaucracy that we're trying to avoid philosophically. Um, Zaki, does that answer your question, or was there a specific mechanism that you wanted us to talk about there?
And Zaki, just one quick thing I'll throw out there as well. I think one of the first tasks that we actually put on our agenda recently was actually just going out to like all the stakeholders like yourself and documenting what the existing processes are, et cetera, to make sure that this working group doesn't do stuff in a vacuum. And like, so really right now we're in kind of the research phase, if that makes sense. But yeah, with that I'll go on mute.
Cool, that helps me understand.
All right,
Sorry.
cool. That's all right. That's all right. Christian, was there anything else that you wanted to add, or does that wrap for you?
No, that's it. I just like throw out there again, like if you have any interest in this stuff, we'd love to have you. And also if you're like someone who's been on this project a long time and really the person who got us where we are, let us know if we should be reaching out to you as well. I'm sure VM and others are, but we we want to make sure we're like talking to and working with all the right people. So yeah, that's all for me.
Cool. And just a reminder to everybody that's in attendance, there is an events function in Discord at the very top of the nav on the left. You can see a list of all the upcoming working group sessions and feel free to join in. In fact, there is a working group session right after this meeting, at least at the top of the hour, and that is the branding and comms working group. Just so happens I'm the archivist for branding and comms, so I will jump in right now. Branding and Comms identified the interim roles last week, and we have up here on stage VM, who's our interim coordinator. I'm the interim archivist, and Design Sage is our interim broker. Uh, Design Sage has been doing a lot of the work right now in terms of sort of chunking what needs to be done into manageable pieces and then working to get that into the Hustle Karma Airtable and help find workers to take on those missions. We're all kind of struggling right now with sort of normalizing what are the right bounties to pay. And I know that's one of the issues. Plus, that Hustle Karma workflow itself is still being refined. So, good on Design Sage for pushing on this, but I expect it's going to be a little bit yet before we start seeing the outputs from that. On the comms side of things, there is going to be a push around building membership and increasing diversity among the membership across the next quarter. That's something that I'm working with OD on. There will also be, a lot of communications around the teams proposal that Zaki mentioned. That's the delegation proposal. We really need to socialize that in the community and educate people to what that is all about so that people can make an informed decision on that. That's really sort of the highlights for branding and comms. Really, last week was us getting organized and getting those interim roles filled and talking about the whole idea of chunking that work and getting it into Hustle Karma. If you have an interest in branding and comms, internal comms, external comms, the logo, the design, the look and feel of the entire project, the UX UI experience with things like Carpe, join us at the top of the hour and become a member of Branding and Comms. VM, you're up here on stage. You are the Branding and Comms coordinator. Did you have anything that you wanted to say while we've got you here?
Um, so just a correction. I'm actually the coordinator for the governance working group.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry, VM. That's right. I screwed up the roles on that. Well, feel free nonetheless. Anything to add on the governance side of things?
yeah, I mean, I think you and Christian alluded to most of what we discussed about last week. And the questions that Zaki asked essentially tied into them as well. So the primary role of the governance group at the moment is trying to find a happy place between existing protocol governance and also trying to get more people outside of the validator set involved in voting processes like how do we define active, passive members, etc. So I've been working on two pieces. I haven't reached out to any validators yet in terms of how do they see governance playing a role. I'm actually just forming a questionnaire of sorts before I reach out to them. The other piece I was looking at was also trying to see if we can leverage either um, um, the open source radical exchange voting mechanism that they already have. There have been some updates to it in the last month, so I believe it's changed since the last time the group actually used it for voting. There's also a link that I think Rico posted in terms of liquid democracy. So I'm looking at that as well. And I also reached out to Commonwealth and tried to see if they have mechanisms in place to allow us to be able to vote with our addresses in a way which we can do it if we can do it offline without having to input any seeds or anything like that. So there's some pieces in flux, but it all just began last week, so it's all new. But hopefully, we'll have a clearer picture in the next week um, as far as the community call goes. So that's all I had for this particular meeting.
Oh, that's excellent, VM. And remind everybody, when is the governance working group meeting scheduled?
So the governance working group meeting is scheduled on Thursdays, I believe. One second, I
Yeah,
will
I think that's right. I think, isn't it
Thursday.
Thursday at noon Eastern?
Yeah, noon Eastern, and then there's yeah. So I was mixing up two of the ones. There's one, the one which we are talking about specifically is at noon for the governance working group, which anybody and everybody is welcome to join, and feedback's always welcome. And there's also another meeting for the operations working group, I believe, at 11 a.m. EST. So
Yeah,
those
that's
are the
right.
two meetings.
That's right. That'll be the first meeting of the operations working group, which is super interesting for us. For
Right.
those of you who haven't looked at the org proposal, the operations group is a meta working group that's comprised of all the coordinators of the other working groups plus anyone else that wants to join. All the working groups are open to anybody, but the operations working group is a new structure for us that provides a coordination function so that we remain efficient about what we attack and that we don't miss things. Okay, thank you, VM. OD, welcome to the stage. You are bossing around the engineering working group. I believe you're the interim coordinator there. Can you give us an update on what is happening with the engineering working group? OD, I show you off mute, but I have no sound from you. You want to check your hardware? Still nothing. You're on mute. You're gone. Okay, he's re-entering the room. We have had some problems with that before. As soon as he gets back on stage, we'll turn over to him for the engineering update. We were going to get an update today on Carpe, and then Adal pinged me just a little while ago and said he's sick, so that is going to be bumped until next week. But OD is back. Can you speak? You're off.
How about now?
Yeah, there you go, man. Welcome.
All right. Okay. Thanks, folks. So let's see. We went over the roadmap, is where we started our last meeting. And you can see the roadmap on the GitHub wiki. There's only one page on the wiki, which is a roadmap. We moved all of the other documentation into the actual repo itself. Maybe someone here can post it for people to follow along. But I'll just read through it very quickly here. At the highest level, we've got network reliability projects. We have the upstream merge project to DM 1.4. We have a number of automation projects, which is the goal is to redirect the time of contributors from doing node operations into doing coding and doing other work for OL. Next big project we have is making Carpe part of the security model, and that's related to, and teams and delegations related to that. And then the last project we have is the bridge, which is connecting to other chains. We have a number of contributors there. We had a lower turnout just because we've changed the time that we normally meet, so we're trying to find a good time for folks to join. But generally, right now, we're all hands on debugging the network incidents that we've been having and providing the tools for all the validators to be on the new network architecture. And so that's been published, and I think that's in a good place. We're feeling pretty confident about that, but we're only really going to know after we let some transactions through from Carpe. And the next order of work is, well, we have a little bit of protocol change, not protocol change, but in the protocol code, we need to find out a better way of doing the hot upgrades when we want to update the move code. So that's a bit of research that I'm doing, and I'll probably be working on next couple of days.
Yeah, I mean that the hot update problem that you've been describing, um, uh, uh, um, seems like a potential blocker or like significant inconvenience, especially because right now we have like lots of people who are running full nodes and we have lots of validators. So like trying to get back to that state where we don't have any transactions for a few blocks around the epoch boundary sounds really hard.
Yeah, that's right. Since we have, it's a dark forest and there are people submitting transactions through full nodes we don't know about. So so we need to figure out so there's just a virtual machine caching that needs to be resolved when we do an update. And we have the move designer, the language designer has actually helped us out and pointed out to where that needs to be updated. The next meaningful
For
amount of
Sam. Yeah.
Sam, and a large amount of work needs to go into Carpe as well. So I think we've maybe we need to redouble the efforts on making Carpe reliable for folks, because now that we need people to know that when there's something wrong with Carpe or wrong with the network, as it is, it's just not giving a great user experience for users, and it's going to be important because we want to do a push for delegation. So that's the other big project. So how do we get Carpe to be part of the security model? How do we get these puzzle towers to be part of the security model? And that's through the teams, also known as delegation update. And if we're going to really lean in on the puzzle towers and we're going to lean in on Carpe, the Carpe app needs to be very, very reliable. Doesn't necessarily have to do much. We can be lean on features, but it has to be super reliable for people. So right now, we would say that Carpe is in an alpha state, and we want to move it to a beta state. So we have a long list of things we need to do there. I'll stop here. I mean, you can go through the roadmap online. What we're looking for is obviously we want to pull in more engineers into the engineering working group. There are a number of bounties that are available. Wade has been super helpful as a broker in our engineering working group to outline all of the tasks that are related to things that are in the roadmap. So we want to make sure that those get taken up. The other thing that I'll plug is the full-time engineers programs, and this is a community wallets that we have that all of you, almost all validators, have been donating into. It's a significant amount of coins that are in there. They're supposed to be dispersed every month. We haven't yet done that yet, but soon we will start doing that again. And yeah, I think that should be a big attractor for anyone that can spend, at least 20 or 30 hours a week on OL. As an engineer, there are very meaningful rewards there. So come and join us there. Maybe I'll stop here. I'll happy to take questions as well.
Anyone have any questions about what's happening on the engineering front? I know there were some questions in Discord about roadmap, et cetera. Does anyone want to talk about that now? It's a good time. We've got the right people on the stage. All right, I'm just going to keep things moving. If somebody has a question, use the function and put up your hand and I'll get you up here. The last working group that's up and running right now is the analytics working group. Unfortunately, their archivist is New Drew, and as I indicated earlier, New Drew has COVID and is not feeling well and is not joining us today. Next week, we will also have the first update from the operations working group, which has its first meeting tomorrow, as mentioned by VM earlier. So stay tuned. Things are definitely moving. I know on the Hustle Karma front, I think we processed more invoices this last week than we have to date. We've got payments coming out from the engineering fund, from the full-time workers fund, from the Moonshot program. So things are starting to move on that side, and you can feel that a bit of momentum is starting to pick up. The last item we had was the Carpe update. As I mentioned, that's not happening. Adele's not with us. So at this point, I'm just going to open it up for questions, or if anyone on the stage has anything else that they'd like to talk about that we haven't covered. So I'm going to go on mute for a second. If anyone else on the stage wants to talk, please go ahead, and I'll watch out for hands from the crowd. All right, I'll take that as a sign that we don't have any other business today. So with that, reminder, the branding and comms working group kicks off in 25 minutes. Please join us if you have any interest in that field of work. The other working group meetings are listed on the events tab on the navigation. The weekly meeting next week, same time, Wednesday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Feel free to join us, bring some friends, and thank you all for being interested. Oh, we have somebody else on stage, Nazario. What's up?
Hey, I'm gonna miss this, but do you have plans for when? Sorry, I also have COVID. You have plans when you were thinking of having people developing upon the Move framework on top of ZeroL, like tokens and whatever else, like applications on top.
Yeah, I could probably answer that. And yeah, sorry to hear that you're not well. I think half of the world has COVID, the other half doesn't know it yet. Um, Same thing here in my house. So in terms of Move, you can publish contracts today on OL. I don't know anybody that's done it yet. We didn't prioritize, let's see, use cases on launching OL. We, strategically we wanted to prioritize the distribution game, so to speak. But right now, that's something that can be done. There's some documentation out there for it, and we'd like to see. Yeah, and in fact, there are some bounties. Wade, correct me if I'm wrong, but we put out some bounties on Hustle Karma just to do, for anybody that wanted to just test the tooling for publishing. You can do that, and there's a bounty for doing that. So there's that. In terms of like roadmap of like when we would do a big push on applications, I mean, I think many people here know that my interest is actually much more in the application layer. I'm more interested in designing, different games and protocols on the Move layer. So I'm excited for that to happen as well. I think, realistically, it's going to be, after we get, you know, the delegation work done. We have a lot of Carpe users in. Let's say we get to 10,000, Carpe miners on the network. That's probably when I will feel like spending more time on the, writing third-party contracts on there. And I think that might be a sign for other people that that would be sort of an appropriate time. Anyway, just extemporizing here. That's off the top of my head. Did that help answer that question?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I guess we have you on stage, and this is for Zaki as well. Well, we have Zaki. I mean, bear with us, everybody else, if you're not interested in this. But we want to make sure all the validators are also contributing full nodes to the network. What we're calling the VFNs, so the private validator full nodes. And I floated an idea here to Zaki and to Greg in DMs about, does it make sense for us to create stronger consensus, stronger coordination on running a full node, something like, your validator stops listening to connections from another validator that may be doing fine work as a validator, but they're not providing a VFN open to the public. Do we effectively censor them?
This is a terrible idea, Lucas. It like makes the entire network DOSable.
Say more.
Because all I have to do to get you kicked out of the validator set now is DOS your full node.
You could have just DOSed you could have DOSed the validator as well.
Yeah, but like I can restrict the IP addresses that like what I'm saying is like now I'm in this weird position where I can either restrict the IP addresses that can connect to me to the other validator nodes, which is like what my countermeasure is in like a DOS scenario. But now I've created a full node that's useless.
Sure, but the VFN isn't open to the public either, so it's not DOSable in the same way.
But if the VFN is not open to the public, then how do the other validators connect to it?
The validators don't connect to the VFN, so the VFN connects to the public full nodes. Public full nodes have RPCs open, so the VFNs don't have RPC open. So it's not like you can. They have probably the same DOS profile as as the validators. It's the way I understand.
You have to be careful, I think, either way, because you could DOS it. There's all kinds of possible misconfigurations that people have, and all kinds of other things. You have to be careful when you start trying to kick people out of the validator set. Things that you can observe that could be just because of all kinds of other reasons.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, like
in the case of the VFN, I felt that we have a little more control over that.
I mean, so they're
Zaki
connected to
feels
public full
strongly
nodes,
about
but
this.
if they connect to public full nodes, therefore they're open. They don't have the JSON RPC endpoint, but they are open for DDoS from being DOSed from just random people, because there is a port open that is open to the public, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That one's on all interfaces. Yeah. Good. Okay.
I have a real, I will just say that in general, in like the history of blockchain networks, we have mostly ended up in a world where like wallet providers and exchanges and block explorers and that kind of stuff are the ones running the full nodes, and validators mostly focus on validating. Um, and these are somewhat orthogonal specialties. Um, and so, that has been like sort of the natural configuration of the world. And trying to be like, hey, we want all of our validators to also run full nodes, and to know whole bunch of things about how the end users are using the network has never been like really a stable, steady state.
But how do we ingest transactions then? How do validators ingest transactions?
How did the validators adjust transactions? So
Yeah.
some full node is connected to connected to the validator network via the private VFN. Like there are some bridges between these two networks, and like those bridges are probably from a validator that is like associated with, you know, the block explorer or the wallet or whatever, and like understands more about like what's going on with Carpe, for instance.
Yeah. No.
Ultimately,
Like,
this has to be incentivized, like driven by the fees that you're going to skim off. Ultimately, so that, doing the right thing to process transactions should be driven by the fact you're going to make. You have benefit from doing that, and whatever doesn't give you the benefit should be, the stuff we're trying to keep out. Why would a validator take on a huge amount of worthless work and burn their CPU out?
well, because they like, I mean, it's more the context, right? If you don't understand what is going on with Carpe and you were just blindly like, oh, I'm just like sitting here not knowing anything about Carpe, don't know anything about the Carpe release cycle, don't know anything about how to fix how bugs get fixed in Carpe, and I'm just sitting here like waiting for Carpe users to send me transactions. Like you're kind of in a somewhat awkward place. I mean, as an industry, it's not like we've solved this problem.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that the validators need to run public full nodes. So what I'm saying is, how do we get validators to actually run the VFNs? Because right now we have maybe a third of the validators now aren't running VFNs, and not exactly sure how to persuade them.
So there are, in my mind, 3 states that are possible. Okay, so one state is you're running the old config, where you are simultaneously running validator full node and the public full node network and the validator network on the same machine. Those machines will go down.
Yeah, those machines will go down on their own, and there are very few people right now on the network that have that config.
Okay. So the second state is I have the VFN and I'm connected to it, and which means I'm a bridge. I can ingest transactions from the full node network. Right?
Correct.
Validators someone who is in that state is like ingesting transactions from the full node network. Correct?
So that's a validator that is running a second host called the VFN, the private.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's a third case, I think. that you might be suggesting, where you're running 3 hosts.
Yep.
Right. I don't think
So
there's any.
I will say that the network will probably function fine if there are a relatively small number of people running those bridge nodes right now.
So let me just paraphrase here. So are we saying that the VFNs are not mandatory and they're voluntary to run a VFN?
That I think the network would run fine if that was the case.
It's kind of the same as what I'm trying to say, is that it's like you can do stuff to stop your validator being DOSed. One of the things you can do is the arrangement that we've described, but there might be other things you could do.
Basically, yeah, because like it looked like people's validators were falling behind when they weren't running a VFN, and that's the only the only incentivization is just that your validator is going to be slow and you might fall behind and not actually get any rewards if you don't run one. But you don't necessarily need it.
So I think the risk, that's probably fine. The risk is that people go back and start doing sort of heterodox things and run a full node on their validator node, and that becomes the default. And then you don't have 2/3 of the network that are running in ideal configurations. So if anyhow, it's like how do we get 2/3 of the network to be on the configurations as the software was designed for?
Kirti, you came up here on stage. Is there something you'd like to say?
Just about setting up the VFN and having 2 nodes. Just wanted to put a personal front on this. As a student, running 2 validators might be really expensive for me. So I was not sure what to do since the time we started this idea of running 2 nodes. And I'm not sure if this is mandatory or not, so it's not clear to me still.
It's also like, yeah, there needs to be some minimal number of these VFN nodes in order so that like the mempools between the public full node network and the validator network get synchronized through some paths. If we are, like the more paths there are, the like higher the effective TPS of the network is likely to be. But to like it seems less likely to be necessary for initial functionality.
So what's the message that we give out to validators then? What do you think, Zucky? Do we say
I would say that like
please run a VFN, or do we say
I would say it's like, it is a more significant contribution to the network to be like running a VFN and ingesting transactions. But if you cannot, if it is a substantial burden for you financially to like increase the number of nodes that you're to like add a separate second VM to act as a bridge, like I don't think we want to we don't want to we don't want to like erode people out of our validator set because of that right now. I think the real key is to like understand like the thing we are trying to learn right now is what network configuration is stable when Carpe users are sending us transactions. That's what we're trying to find out. And I don't want to like lose sight of trying to like understand that problem to be like, oh, we have to have like like every validator contributing to all network functions approach.
okay, that makes sense. So I mean, from what my read right now, we have enough VFNs out there on the network to start testing the Carpe full nodes, accepting transactions again.
Yeah, if we are convinced that we have removed that enough people are no longer running their validators connected to the public full node network, then we should try to onboard more transaction submitters and then actually and see if the network is stable.
Okay, my guess from looking at the survey sheet, it looks like that we are there. You know, so I think we could probably test that. The other concern I have, and this is also for Zaki and Greg here, my VFN doesn't seem to keep sync with my validator.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
we've talked about this.
yeah.
So for me, I changed some things in my VFN configuration. First of all, it was like a little confusing with the old style configuration, new style configuration. So I changed the port that I was using for the VFN communication. So that's probably not important. And then I forget what I did. I feel like I changed one of the things that I know that you were really pushing for earlier was increasing the number of ping timeouts. I think I decreased that.
So what's your number for ping timeouts?
I have to compare it real quick here. And I'll have to figure it out. I have to go look. But I'm pretty sure. Let's see. No, this is all. All right, maybe I'm wrong. The ping timeout is still large in the VFN, but I might have changed it on the validator. No, it's all right. Then ignore me. Mine seems to stay up to date, but you have to make sure that the VFN that you have also tries to sync with other VFNs, like on a public interface. Because if it's only,
I've done both of those experiments. So having it not run on the public full node and it falls behind, and then having it run on the public full node network, it also falls behind.
Interesting. I mean, mine hasn't fallen behind as far as I could tell.
Right. So I guess my, back to what we were talking about earlier, as long as we have enough VFNs that are staying in sync with their validators, then we'll be able to accept transactions.
One of the things that we don't know the answer to right now is in the public full, like where are the bridges between the public full node network and our current validator network actually happening? Like where is that being bridged right now?
You mean
saying
who is running VFNs?
Who is running VFNs? I guess like the answer I guess would be Greg, at very least, is running a VFN that is connected to like a private validator full node that's syncing with both the public network and the validator network.
I think we have like 30 or more validators now that are running VFNs. That again, these VFNs aren't what we call, they're not serving on JSON RPC ports, but they run on the private network as well as the public full node network.
Yeah, and so that means that there are bridges between the two networks.
Yeah, there'd be
Do
about 30
you understand
bridges.
what I'm saying about like why you need to have bridges between these networks?
Yeah, no, that's clear. I mean, the question I have is how do we get more people to be running those bridges?
Well, if we have 30 of them, we have more than enough.
Okay, that answers the question.
Heads up, guys. 5 minutes.
Yeah, I have to go.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, so let's say that the network already has the topology that we want right now. How should we go about testing and opening it to Carpe users?
We need to have, I guess, port 8080 open on a public full node that they have the IP address for, and see what happens.
Do we want to coordinate a time to do this so people are watching?
Yeah, I think coordinating a time would be really good.
Okay. All right.
Is
And
this
it
for
sounds like a
O-
lot of people have COVID right now, so we don't want to have a bunch of validator admin, be doing incident response for people while they have COVID, to the extent that's possible.
as if we think that's going to end in the next week or two? I think we just keep going, guys.
Well, I think like we'll hit some critical mass of everyone. Like right now, I'm asymptomatic but COVID positive. So
Jeez. All right, let's not go down that bunny trail right now with just 4 minutes left. OD, thanks for jumping in and getting this topic going. Same thing with you, Nadaria, and Zaki, of course, always. Is this firmly in the court of the engineering working group, OD? Are you guys going to take the lead on answering those questions, the open questions that just came out of that discussion?
Yeah, that's our domain.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, any other questions? We still got 3 minutes left. If there's anybody else who have other issues they want to raise, now would be the time.
So I have a question about the VFN again. So if we don't need to set up the VFN node, then do we still need to upgrade anything on the current validators?
Yes. So if you haven't gone to, which I think is the case for your nodes, version 5.0.8, skip ahead to 5.0.9, you need to generate a new configuration file for your validator. So that's the validator node config YAML file. You need a new file. And the binaries that produce it. So just follow the upgrade instructions for 5.0.8 or 5.0.9. 5.0.9. Follow those instructions, and that'll be enough.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? While you're thinking about that, again, the reminder: this meeting happens weekly at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. If you wish to be on the agenda or you've got a topic you'd like to raise, reach out to me or to Shashank. We'll get you on there. And the working groups are happening. The branding and comms working group is going to kick off here in about 2 minutes. Join us if you're interested in that, or find someplace else that you feel at home and get involved. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Thanks to all of our speakers. We appreciate you guys taking the time to share with the community and keep everybody informed. That's it for me. Take it easy. I'll see you all online. Goodbye.